What's up, everybody?
What's going on?
Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Tucker and Beard podcast. We're glad you're here.
Back again.
So, we need to address something.
The elephant in the room.
Before we get too deep into the podcast, we want you guys to know that we've hit a milestone with this show that we're super proud of.
Like super proud.
However,
we're not acknowledging it.
We're not acknowledging that milestone just yet because we want to put on an event for our 100th episode. So, until we can have that event, we have decided to do a new series, kind of like our lockdown series. Yeah. You know, we had like 10 or so episodes in our lockdown series. It was more than that, actually. But,
yeah, it was a few.
So, welcome to the second part of episode 99 of the Tucker and the Beard podcast.
The 99 series.
We are not going to have our 100th episode until we can have a party.
Yeah, we're talking to a few people trying to get some stuff together.
With all the
it's hard right
with
now.
all the protocols that are in place and everything like that. We just can't have the party that we want to have right now. Yeah. So, but please believe we are going to have this party.
Yes, full intentions of,
and we want to invite as many people as we can. The overall goal right now, just to get the word out, is we are going to find a venue and we are going to do a live episode of the podcast that encourages some audience participation. And we're going to have some live music that follows that, you know, so we can have a proper celebration of 100 episodes. So until then, it's going to be episode 99, and this is episode 99 part 2. Yes. So if you're seeing that in the titles, just understand that we're not going to acknowledge episode 100 until we can do it right.
Exactly. So
now that we've gotten that out of the way,
moved out of the side.
Welcome back.
Huh?
That was a word from our sponsors, which is
exactly. Us. So us, our sponsors. Yes. So what's up, man?
It's Monday.
It is. Both you and I came dragging.
Yeah, and anyone who knows me knows that I actually love Mondays. I do. They are my actual favorite day of the week. But this Monday, today, Labor Day, 2020, for some reason, I'm just having a hard time getting going. I even put down a fair bit of coffee this morning, and I'm still just now waking up.
I think I've been that way since, Friday we did some filming, which I'm super excited about. Yeah. The episode coming out. I'm really, really excited about that.
It's going to be amazing.
And then it's just over the weekend, I was just kind of dragging and tired over this weekend. So much so
we
that
stood
I
out
forgot.
in the 100+ degree heat for 5 hours while we were filming on Friday, and that it took its toll on me. I was super pumped. I got back to the office to start, just to dump cards and get everything going, and started editing some of the stuff, and I truly believe that this will be the best episode that we've done so far, and will set a new standard for how we help small businesses market themselves.
Well, it's
going forward.
It's one of those exciting things I was thinking about, because it was like we've gotten to the standard that both you and I have talked about for a while. Yeah, of just constantly getting better, and the visuals that we have in our head of just, hey, this is how we want to kind of do it. But then it also, and I'm sure kind of the same way, that it's like, all right, now we have a new standard.
Yeah, and so
it's like, okay,
and cool. We've made incremental advances over the course of a couple of years that we've been doing this. And to me, just looking at some of the raw footage and putting some of the stuff and tracking some of the audio and all of that mumbo jumbo that everyone appreciates but no one really cares about, like how the sausage is made, so to speak. So just after looking at some of the raw footage, I'm like, oh, this is some next level stuff.
Well, and it's probably little things that you and I talk about all the time where it's like, hey, this would be a really cool shot or something that no one will care about.
No,
other than the two of us, where we're going to be like, that was so awesome. Everybody's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
But you'll again, I think this is more.
I know we're setting it up for.
Yeah. Setting it up for disappointment.
I always do that with movies where I talk to people about movies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And my wife will nudge me and just be like, stop. Like, you're setting it up for.
Well, it's like you've said, someone comes and tells you that you have to watch this movie. It's the greatest thing it's the greatest type of this movie. And then you watch it and you go,
Right. I've had, people tell me this is such a great, and by the time I watch it, I'm like, that was possibly one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Well, it's kind of like
this was Cabin in the Woods.
And I'm gonna step on your toes just a touch. Just a touch.
Well, it's a new day.
And mostly because I know that you and your family have visited Disneyland several times.
Yeah.
And every time I've gone as an adult, it's just underwhelming.
I can understand.
It's a lot of build up to wait in really long lines all day.
Agreed.
And for me, the experience has never been like, and we've got a good friend who his family, they visit an awful lot. Mm-hmm. And to me, I can't get excited about Disneyland.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gone.
You guys went on your honeymoon there, didn't you?
Yeah, that was probably the best and worst idea that ever happened because there was two of us.
Yeah.
And when that happens, there's no lines, man.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we were in the line for Matterhorn at the end of the line, and they had 2 seats open. We walked, so it's like, hey, is there 2? Yeah, right here. We walked past pretty much every single line.
Yeah.
Which then sets like a, expectation.
Yeah, it sets a bad expectation.
And then you go there with
even just
kids,
one kid.
And you're just like, oh my God, we got to
now we have to wait in the actual.
Or it's problematic.
Yeah.
And we've gone other times when my oldest was like a baby and couldn't go on any ride. So then one of us are staying off the line. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
So we haven't.
But I equate that. That's how I feel about Disneyland. It's like, oh, it's so great. It's magical and there's memories. And I'm like, I have some of those memories.
Right.
And we went when the last time we went, we had 2 kids with us, and then we were with my mother-in-law and all of that. And yeah, it was cool.
Right.
But we went to Disney World on that trip.
Yeah, never been to Disney World.
And
that seems like
it was
too much.
hot and muggy.
Yeah.
And the lines were excruciating. And one of our children, who was quite young, was in this one phase where the only time she was happy is if Mama was holding her.
Oh.
So my wife then carried a child
through Disney World.
Yeah. While I pushed a stroller full of nothing.
Yeah, and that was the whole other thing, because going to Disneyland
and it wasn't even
without
like
a stroller
sucks. Yeah, well, it wasn't even like I could switch off and I'll hold the baby for a while. No. This child was to be held by no one other than her mother.
Yeah, no, there was...
Shout out to my wife for being a freaking warrior and carrying a child for 3 days through Disney World.
Yes, one of my children had essentially that the only person that could do anything for them was mom. Mm-hmm. We have video of no, mommy do it.
Yeah.
Getting out of car seats.
No,
mommy do it.
Yeah.
So it became a game of I had to do things behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Like I had to go make a bottle or whatever.
And then hand
it to her.
Yeah.
To go do that. Or, hey, I went and did this. Okay, you can walk in the room now and take
all the credit.
Because if I even tried to do it, no. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. But speaking of my wedding for a second, this is my first segue.
All right.
I'm going to try a couple. I haven't done that in a while of just trying to masterfully do that.
Reach for a segue.
So you were there.
I was
on the wedding day,
and not like Brian Williams was there. I was
actually
there.
You were there. Yeah. I have photos.
I've seen it.
So there was.
You weren't at my wedding.
I know. Well, I think that was. It BT.
Was. Yeah, it was
before Tucker.
It was. That's why you weren't there.
Yes. But there was a huge movie reference in my wedding.
Okay.
That I don't think anybody got because it was from a 1980s movie
that no one cares about.
Essentially, no one cares about. But I rewatched it over the last couple days.
Okay.
My wife ordered it from Amazon. We didn't have it, and it was like, oh, the kids would probably watch it and do a thing. And so we ordered Mannequin. Do you remember the 1980s movie Mannequin?
I do, vaguely. As in like, I've seen it one time.
And that's fine. Which is probably
enough times.
The last song in the movie is when they're getting married.
Okay.
And it's Jefferson Starship Airplane, whichever. I can't remember what they were going by at the time.
Yeah.
Nothing's Gonna Stop Me Now.
Okay.
But right after it's I Do and everything like that, that song played.
And that's what you guys walked out.
That's what we walked out to.
Yeah.
No one got it except for us. But it was kind of funny watching this 1980s cheesiness.
Oh, yes.
With the kids about, a girl that gets turned into a mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. That was one of the multitude of movies that I watched over the last week. And it was just kind of a funny... But there was so many jokes or insults or something that, God forbid, would never happen.
Couldn't fly today. Well, that's 80s movie.
Yeah, but it was to a level.
You can find entire articles and YouTube videos about things that didn't age well.
Yeah, but it made me think because like Steve Carell from The Office did an interview about them bringing back The Office in some kind of capacity.
Yeah,
and he's like, I couldn't be Michael Scott now.
No,
and it's
because he was 50, a caricature of everything the inappropriate wrong. Boss, and so here's why I think The Office was it was completely self-aware.
Yeah.
So I do think that you could
100%.
You could reshoot that shot for shot and re-release it 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And because of its level of self-awareness, I think you could still get away with it.
Yeah, because it was one of those things, like, and watching it, and we had like a little Office marathon, recently, and it was something I was thinking about. It's like he was the example of what not to say.
Of course, and
it was perfect. It was
intentional.
Yeah.
And again, I think it comes down to that self-awareness. The show knew.
Because he would say things and you go...
It always reminds me, there's an episode of Parks and Rec, where Ron Swanson walks in to a restaurant and he orders this meal and the waiter's like, that's a family platter meant to feed 5 people. And he just looks at the waiter and goes, I know what I'm about, son.
Yeah.
And that show knew exactly what it was about.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended to be PC. It was intended to be a caricature of the most ridiculous bosses that everyone has ever had.
Right.
Put into one person.
Right. And it wasn't...
But it knew exactly what it was.
But it was the example.
At no point did it think that it wasn't.
Right, because he would sit there and say something and you go, ooh. Like... And it was that reaction that I go, that's why it could happen now.
100%.
Because everybody around him is telling him that he can't say or do these things. They don't just let it slide. Like they call him out and just go, yeah, you can't say these things. So I don't know. It was just an interesting, but yeah, the Mannequin movie, while still good, every once in a while they were throwing some lines out there that you're just like, oh
snap. Yeah.
That couldn't happen now. That's not good. But
not everything is as off limits as we think it is these days, I think.
Yeah.
There's there's obviously the woke police that try and make everything into a offense against humanity.
Right.
And I'm taking your segue card away from you for just
no, it's good.
Because and that was 100% proven in a movie that we watched over the weekend, which was the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Right. Which I'm so excited that you watch, because I told you like a while ago that, hey, watch this movie if you get a chance.
It had just shown up on Hulu a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, we've been meaning to.
I should have even thought about it once I saw that it was like free.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think to let you know. I'd be like, hey, man. Because how many times do I tell him, like, hey, watch this movie? Hey, watch this movie.
Yeah. And well, both ways. I'm like, watch this show, watch this movie.
Right.
Sure, I'll get to it.
Right.
I still don't think you've watched a single episode of Letterkenny yet.
I have. I started an episode.
Okay.
And then I had to turn it off for family.
Oh, yeah.
Reasons.
It's not family friendly.
It was just one of those
situations,
situations, as you probably know, that it's like you have that moment that you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to sit here and do that. No one's around.
Yeah.
Everything's good. And the moment you start to do something is when everybody needs your attention.
Absolutely.
And wants to come in the room, and you're like,
never mind.
Anyways, Peanut Butter Falcon.
The Peanut Butter Falcon was, I mean, if you just read a brief summary, immediately you go, ooh, the woke police are going to come after this movie.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, at least, they didn't.
No.
And rightfully so.
No,
it was a fantastic movie.
Yeah. It was... I
I
for anybody that doesn't know, it's about a kid that has been abandoned by his parents.
He's a person with Down syndrome.
Yeah, and he's left in like a nursing home because that's the only place in this town that can give him the attention that they feel he needs. But he really wants to be a wrestler. Yeah,
and he's been watching these old VHS tapes of this guy who's got a wrestling school, and he's just obsessed with it, and so he runs away, and in a way, but not in a like a funny way, where some movies would take it, and hijinks ensue, so to speak. That was not this at all.
I was like, it's a level of hijinks, but not.
Well, and
hijinks. It's
I think it was rightly.
It's an adventure of, a travel.
Well, it was rightly compared to like a Mark Twain type story. Where, you've got Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn,
trying to get
right
to
in the
this
river,
place.
trying to on an adventure, so to speak. Yeah. And it was just a absolutely tremendous movie.
Yeah. He ends up meeting up with Shia LaBeouf. I always feel like I say that wrong.
Well,
but and who's going through some stuff in his life and trying to find his way, but he got into some things and is running.
Mistakes were made.
He's running away, and it becomes kind of a Huckleberry Finn.
Two people running away from their respective problems, so to speak.
But then it's just friendship. And it's just a really, really cool movie that I encourage everybody to.
What was his name? Zach Gottesgan.
Yes.
Gottesgan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
which in real life he is all about wrestling.
Well, and
it's pretty cool.
And see, this was proof positive that despite his disability, he acted well.
Yeah.
Like, his performance was amazing.
Yeah, and
it wasn't like, oh, he was really good for a dude with Down syndrome. No,
he was good for anybody.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was simply great.
He dropped some one-liners that I was dying laughing.
They had to have a hard time shooting some of that stuff
I'd be dying
because of his one-liners. It was that level where people broke on set.
Yeah. What's the first rule? Party. It's just so good. It's like, no, it's not party.
But yeah, it was a really, really great movie. I cannot recommend it enough. So if you haven't seen it and you do have a Hulu subscription, check that movie out. Or I think it's on Prime as well. I think it's on Amazon Prime as well. I think
so, because normally when it comes on one, it usually...
On more than one. So if you have Hulu or Amazon Prime, check that movie out. It will warm your heart, and it will... it was just really, really great. I'd watch it a second time.
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah, I'd watch it again times.
Today.
Because then we watched it with like the kids.
Yeah, there was some little, that's definitely a situation where you need to just you know your kids,
right? Not all my kids, but it's like, especially when it's like I think there's a good message.
Yeah, there's a little bit of language.
Yeah, but
some drinking and things of that nature,
right.
But. Know your kids, and
so and my older son, not that I have more than one, but I'm just saying, I'm emphasizing that he is older.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it, and he got the message and everything like that, so I thought it was super cool. But I'm sliding the card back across. No, one of those movies that we watched that's also on, I think it was on Prime, was The Way Back.
Yeah.
With Ben Affleck, where he was... Listen, it wasn't something... My wife wanted to watch it a whole lot more than me. I'm a Ben Affleck fan, so that's why I was like, okay, cool. But to me, we've seen this Coach Carter story of...
and that's kind of why it never really hit my radar. Yeah. Because, I don't... Despite what it may seem like, I don't dislike Ben Affleck. Yeah. But he's not like... If I see a Ben Affleck movie, I'm not like, oh, we got to go see the new Ben Affleck movie.
Yeah.
And so you couple that with, it's another school sports coach.
Bringing the down. Yeah. It's
motivational type wanting to be movie.
Yeah.
I can skip over it.
That was kind of my thing. But we did sit down and watch it, and I was very, very impressed with it.
Okay.
Listen, it's not The Town. I think that's my...
Well, obviously it's not supposed to be The Town, but...
No, but...
So was it Coach Carter? Was it Facing the Giants? Was it...
McFarland USA? Those... Yes.
Okay.
But it was more... Listen, there's some parts where you go, is this something Affleck wrote while he was in rehab?
Right.
Or it seems very close to... situations that's happened in his real life. Not that he's gone to teach basketball, but well, maybe he did one day when he was not coherent.
Yeah.
But it's to the uncomfortable point, like the alcoholism in it. And I think I told you before we started recording, he drank more in the first 2 minutes before anybody talked.
Yeah.
Than I probably drank my whole entire life. I don't know. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But it was just shower. But it just... Listen, it was either method acting or some kind of thing, like the puffiness. And he looked like he smelled of alcohol.
All the time.
All the time. Until it's kind of like, teaching these kids
blah, blah,
helps
blah.
them a little bit. But there's many layers to it where certain point where you're I get it now. Like, why? Like, what's happened? Nice Shrek reference.
Yeah.
But, it was very good. It was just one of those movies where afterwards I was like, okay, I'm a little down right now.
Right.
Just because it wasn't
a super upbeat movie.
Right. And then we watched, right after that, we had another one lined up, and it was Desperados, a Netflix original movie.
Okay.
And it was about this girl meets this guy, and
okay,
that's it. She meets this guy. No, and she doesn't hear from him, so she writes him in this nasty email.
Okay.
And sends it to him, and then right at that time he calls and he goes, "Hey, I was in a coma for a couple days. I got into a car accident." So then it's her having to go to Mexico, where he's at, to break into his room to erase the email before. So it's kind of that comedic.
Okay.
It was kind of one of those things.
I have to delete this email before
he sees it because it's so bad, personally insulting. on multiple. She was mad thinking that
it's
he
been
had
the plot
ghosted
of
her.
many a. It's been the plot of many a sitcom episode.
Yeah,
and
it's nothing. Unlike that, we got done and we're like, okay,
all right,
that was a thing.
We watched that.
Could have been better. Could have been worse, but
another big Netflix release that is coming up.
Yes,
is The Devil All the Time.
Oh yeah,
that's coming out on the 16th of this month.
Is it the 16th? Okay.
And I am super. That just looks really, really good.
Yeah.
And I always like to see how actors that you kind of think of one way transition into a different type of role.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see how Tom Holland acts in this scenario.
And I think Robert Pattinson,
which I think he's kind of the antagonist.
Yeah, but you heard about the news with Robert Pattinson, the Batman news.
Which Batman news?
And it's put on halt again.
Has it really?
Yeah, he came down with the COVID.
Idiot.
I thought,
come on, man.
That was my reaction literally when I heard it. I was like, come on. I guess it came out first that it before everyone knew it was him. It was, hey, Batman's been halted. Somebody tested positive for COVID. And then it was like 5 minutes later. It was like, and it was Robert Pattinson.
And it was the Batman.
It was the Batman himself. So
I mean, we've got this movie's got a solid cast.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård.
Nice.
Just some real. I'm excited to see it. Sebastian Stan.
Yep.
Is in it as well.
Which is always funny in a weird way.
And
when you start bringing Marvel characters into other movies.
And when they're in the stands, like, is Robert Downey Jr. going to be in this one too? Like
Chris Evans is going to pop in.
Right.
But yeah. And then you and I unknowingly started watching another new Netflix.
It's new to Netflix. Yes. If you've been a subscriber to YouTube Premium for any period of time, you would have had access to this show a year ago.
I think so.
Maybe even closer to 2.
Because there's 2
seasons and a third one is on the way.
Which I've heard
the third season is going to go directly to Netflix. So Netflix now owns the rights to the show.
I guess we can tell you. It's Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So I watched the first few episodes. I was, unfortunately, I had to visit the tire shop over the weekend. I've been having some tire issues.
I forgot to ask you about that. Yeah.
I ended up just having to go buy some new tires for the Beardmobile, and it was an interesting experience in these COVID times getting new tires, because normally, you'd walk in and you would say, I want these tires, and they would say, okay, wait here, and they do the thing. Not the case. So I pull up.
They make you leave?
No, I pull up to the tire shop, and there's a little tent, a little pop up awning, and there's a guy in there, and he's like, what can we do for you, and so we talk about what I need and blah blah blah, and then he's like, all right, we'll park over there, and we'll come and get you when it's ready, when we're ready for you.
Mm-hmm.
So then they come and get me when they're ready for me, and they're like, okay, pull in to this bay.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And then they're like, all right, well, we'll be done in about 20 minutes. I was like, oh, so where do I? They're like, no, just stay here. So, like, I'm in my car while they lift my car into the air, swap out my tires, and I never left my car.
Like NASCAR style.
Yeah, I never left my car. And so
it's kind of cool in a way, but
the
it's
whole
weird.
process took about an hour and a half, which wasn't terrible, actually. I've certainly waited at tire shops longer.
Right.
For things to be done. And so I never left my car, but while I was waiting, I watched a couple episodes of Cobra Kai.
Yeah. We had started it last night because we had put it on hold. I was kind of telling you, my son wanted to watch it.
Right.
And so we were going to start it before, and then we're like, okay, we'll wait on him, and then we'll start watching it together. But then that's just a thing of like, all right, well, we can't watch any episodes because they can't do it. So it's just a big old
Well, and my intention for watching it was because my son, who was turning 9 in a couple weeks, so he's a good bit younger than your son. He had seen it. He's a big fan of the Karate Kid movies, even that one. So he
Tokyo
trained
Drift, Karate Kid, Tokyo Drift,
Karate Kid Tokyo Drift. But no, he also he trains jiu-jitsu, so he's into martial arts, and so he was like, oh, I want to see it, and so I was like, I'm gonna check it out first, to see if it's appropriate.
Luckily, I looked up the parents' guide and got enough of the because we've talked about it before that it's like, okay, if there's a little bit of language or whatever, like, okay, that's silly.
This goes a little bit beyond any of that.
This isn't the Karate Kid. Karate Kid is very PG. Like
it's those are solid PG movies
or something.
Yeah, those are solid PG movies.
This is
not that.
This
would never fly on network television.
No.
And so it would, had it gone the traditional...
Not to make it sound too bad, but
it's still, you could not play this during prime time.
No.
And so if it had gone the traditional TV route, it would have been something that maybe was on like FX or like USA Network or something like that. And, probably would have shown later in the evening, after 9 p.m.
We're super into it. It's just one of those, like, after I saw what I saw, that it's like, okay, we started it, and I made the decision that I'm like, okay, you know what? He doesn't need to. Yeah. He doesn't need to watch this.
He's not old enough for it, for sure. Especially, like I said, my son, who's not yet 9, and even, versus your son.
Right.
Yeah, who's exactly 15, almost 16.
No, he's 15.
Just 15. Yeah. Okay. It's just not quite appropriate for children. So
there's just something that they just there's a line.
There is a fair bit of language. It's not. It's not enough to be like R-rated,
right,
so to speak. But there's enough language. And then there's some subject material that's certainly just not appropriate for kids.
Yeah, and then it's just okay.
Yeah.
But I very much. That being said, we got into it. I watched 6 episodes, so we're not done with season 1 yet. But it got really in, and like my wife and I were talking about, it has multiple different layers to the story and different things going on with relationships with kids, and then what they got going on at school, and then
I feel like I should interject in 2020 and say relationships between kids.
Yes. Thank you.
Because
I didn't even catch that I said that, so thanks.
It's just
it's nothing like
it's not Pizzagate in a Netflix TV series.
Right. It's not like, but it's bullying at school, and it's and then Johnny and Daniel's
life paths and how they've diverged.
Their relationship that it's really, really
Let's
good.
just say LaRusso he's really ridden that one crane kick.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of
for the rest of his life.
It was before the Cobra Kai thing. I remember seeing a video, and some YouTuber or something did a full thing of how Daniel was actually the bad guy of the Karate Kid.
Right.
And made very valid points. And you're just kind of...
At first you're like, how dare you?
And then they go...
And then you're like,
and they even say it like, listen, Johnny wasn't... Johnny wasn't like the nicest kid, like, so we're not putting that aside, but, this new kid comes to town, steals his girlfriend,
right,
keeps messing with him, and, sucker punches him, and then does an illegal kick to win the tournament. And I feel like they took that video, like, I hope that guy got credit somewhere.
Let's see what happens.
Because that's really what it is. And it's just like, hey, Daniel's not... And it's episode by episode, but the first one, you're kind of like, Daniel's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like, he's done well by himself, but like you said, he's
kind of a douchebag.
He's ridden that crane kick. He's like...
into adulthood.
He's a car salesman, and he's like, with every car is a bonsai tree. Like,
right.
You're just like, oh my God, man, seriously? But yeah, we're in, and it's
it's a fun show. It is good, but I would caution against showing it to your little ones. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, you doing okay over there?
I'm doing fine. Cool. Just getting blown up a little bit. Yeah.
No, I get it. I was like,
so my weekend plans, fortunately, I won't say unfortunately because it is a good thing, but my original plans for this weekend got a bit derailed.
Yeah.
Because my original plans for this weekend were to do nothing but play Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Almost picked it up.
And but I did get a chance to play it for a few minutes. My boys have been playing it, and they're loving it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so great.
Oh yeah,
it is so great. So I mean, that was one of the games that I was a huge fan of when it came out when I was a teenager.
Right.
And it got me to play other similar type games.
Okay.
None of which
held up.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, so we had you had the Matt Hoffman BMX spinoff from Activision,
right.
And then there was some other games, and then there were games that came on later like Skate that tried to take the concept, we can make a skating video game with a cool soundtrack, but what we're going to do is they kind of went with that like Forza Motorsports when it first came out was like, cool, we're going to make a driving game, but like if you hit something, you're out of the race.
Right.
Like it breaks your car. It's
realistic.
They tried to amp up the realism to almost simulation levels. And so there was some games that tried to do that just weren't as good.
Right.
And so, yeah, listen, I understand that the physics in this game are completely unrealistic.
Yeah, but you don't care.
But I don't care.
Right.
Not even a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to get back to that, like, hey, watch me string 35 different tricks together over the course of 2 minutes.
Right.
And not fall off the board one time.
Right. It's like not going to happen.
It's an action movie version of a video game where just everything, where the hero never changes the magazine in his gun, but never seems to run out of ammunition either.
Right. Exactly.
So it's that, and it's fun for the sake of fun. And I loved it.
Oh yeah. No, I'm going to.
We are going to do a video together. Kind of. We'll sit down and we'll play the game for a little while and just because it's fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll tag that into a future version of a future installment of episode 99.
Yeah, episode 99. No, I almost picked it up the other day. I'll probably pick it up because it's half price of like another new game, and there's 2 games that are
the price was killer.
Yeah. And
it's a good game, and it's just fun. It's fun for the sake of fun. The soundtrack brings you back, for those of us who were young.
Yes.
When the first
and the music games, that we listened to,
and the soundtrack is
one of the best.
It's amazing. Yeah. There's a Spotify playlist that the game
Did they
developers
nice.
Developed for it, and that was I was just listening to it one day when I was driving around, and I was like, it's just good.
No, I didn't even know about that because that excited because there was bands that I listened to.
Yeah, there are bands that all of a sudden
they came up on the thing. You're like,
you got bands like Bad Religion, Goldfinger, Rage Against the Machine, bands that I still listen to this day. Yeah. And there was some newer stuff thrown in there as well, which I appreciated.
Yeah, no, it was
really did.
That was a game that I used to play with. My friends when we're sitting there hanging out, and it never got old, and so it's kind of just that nostalgia. I completed.
I didn't lose my touch.
Okay.
There was some like remembering some of the mechanics, but I sat down and played it for maybe half an hour, and beat all the objectives in the first 2 levels within that half an hour.
Right. Well, I read a thing that it's like there's so many, like the replay on it is so good because there's like 21 objectives per character per level. Like, so they're like
you can replay as each of the individual skaters. You can build your own skater, and there is
a park. There's
a park builder.
That's awesome.
It brings back that old school split screen multiplayer,
nice,
which I missed so much in so many of the new games that come out today.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to play with a friend, you have to have a subscription and an internet connection, and all of that. And I just, like one game that's still on my Xbox today is there was a collection of all of the Halo games, and the reason that it's still on my Xbox is because it retains that split screen multiplayer,
right?
Because again, I can sit down for a little while with the boys and just play.
Yeah,
we can just play a game together.
Yep,
and we don't have to worry about now we've got to have another Xbox in another room, and you remember LAN parties?
Oh yeah,
that was a thing that we used to do. We used to have those local, everyone would bring an Xbox and a monitor or their computer or something like that, and that was the way that was our multiplayer game
at the time. And then it became
after we had 4-player GoldenEye on.
I know.
On a 32-inch screen, like a 32-inch CRT.
It doesn't.
And
it doesn't
we'd have
go
4
very
people.
It was awesome.
Game,
it was awesome,
but
at the
we
time.
loved it. Yeah.
But now it's like, that's a thing.
Yeah, people still do that.
So, no, I'm surprised to see what games they start to kind of bring back. I'm surprised no one's brought back GoldenEye.
Well, Nintendo's taken a pretty hard stance against violent video games.
Yeah.
In recent years, so it could be a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, even though you want to talk about how Daniel was actually the bad guy in Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff where they turn the whole Mario story concept around as
Mario's the bad guy. It's an interesting twist.
He's coming in like
just showing up, wrecking stuff.
I mean, breaking walls and killing these innocent Goombas.
Yeah, that are just hanging out.
They're just trying to do their job, man.
Yeah.
Just trying to do their job.
I get it.
Anyway.
So.
It's time to work. I have so much I have to do this week. And
I'm with you.
Amongst other things.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Off to work.
Thanks for hanging in for episode 99 part 2. We'll be back next week with episode 99 part 3.
Yeah.
So,
it's awesome.
Like, comment, subscribe.
All those things.
We love you guys. Until next time, he's Tucker.
He's the Beard.
And we're out.